Last week, I discussed Satan's unholy day. That was because the sermonette was on Christmas Day, and that was the next to last of Satan's unholy days. The last one is the last great day, which is today, New Year's Day, his imitation of the last great day, which is today, New Year's Day. And I pointed out that the time between the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles and the last great day is 8 days. And the time between Christmas Day, beginning on counting December 25th is day one, through New Year's Day is also 8 days. And today I will discuss other deceptions that Satan has introduced into our lives that result in a feeling of feeling righteous while breaking God's command. Now, God has given all people the human spirit. Included in that spirit is a need for a deity and a need to justify our actions. That need even causes people to try to justify selfish actions as righteous. You've all heard the phrase, well, it was the right thing to do under the circumstances. God comments about that in Judges 21:25. Reading from there, everyone did what was right in his own eye. And we say it was the right thing to do under the circumstances. And that was the right in our own eyes, exactly as explained in Judges. Satan exploits that same weakness. And Satan wants us to feel righteous while we are breaking God's command. Reading from Proverbs 16, verse 2, all the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. So what we're saying is we're trying to feel righteous. We're pure in our own eyes, but then the Lord weighs the spirit. Are we sincere about it and think we're doing well, or are we not sincere? There's a caution for each of us in the church, and we need to beware of feeling righteous, because in doing so, we may inadvertently be breaking God's command. Well, let's take a look at how Satan has deceived most Christians into thinking they're obeying God. And remember, you can be sincere and still be wrong. The first example is the Sabbath day versus Sunday. The fourth commandment is to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. Satan has deceived Christians into believing the Sabbath day is Sunday. They will sincerely keep Sunday and unknowingly not keep the Sabbath. They think they are being righteous, but they're not. They're breaking the fourth commandment, because the Sabbath is a sign of God's people. Well, we can look at this as those people who are really sincere and are deceived about Sunday. Well, that's not nearly as serious, because God weighs the spirit, as those who know that the Sabbath is not Sunday and keep Sunday anyway. Second example, family and marriage. God began the family in Genesis with the creation and marriage of Adam and Eve. God told them to go forth and multiply. Satan has convinced Western society that this is intolerant and wrong. Society, our Western society, says that you can have gay marriage and that family is just as good as the family that God created. And certainly there are churches that have gay bishops now, and they are performing gay marriages, and they think they are pleasing God, and they think they're tolerant, but they're not. They're participating in Satan's effort to destroy the family. So we have to look at our attitudes about this in our society. How are we? Are we feeling righteous about certain things that perhaps we shouldn't be feeling righteous about? The third and last area that I want to comment on, that the first three commandments are our approach to God. And the primary point is that there are no gods before the true God. And there is only one true God, the Father, and Jesus Christ, his Son, the God family. Worshipping other gods is a sin. So Satan has introduced many false gods due to our need for a feeling of belief in a God. In fact, there's a book called The Unsecular Society that kind of describes that quite well. Every society has religious beliefs. There were few that tried to eliminate God or any religious beliefs, and they didn't last long, like the French Revolution, the Soviet Union, or Nazi Germany. Way in the past, the pantheon of Greek and Roman gods were a whole slew of gods that Satan had introduced that people could worship instead of worshiping the true God. In our society, there's two new false gods coming. We've always had materialism as a false god, but their false god can be Gaia or Mother Earth. And there are people that do indeed are beginning to worship Mother Earth, and you can see that in some of the trends in society. There are false ways to worship the true God, such that you think you are worshiping a false God, but think you are worshiping a true God. A God can be a belief in something. Satan doesn't care what God you serve as long as it's not the true God. But there is a need that has to be filled, that people have a faith in something. And the newest God is the God of science, as in, quote unquote, follow the science. The God of science isn't really science. In science, true science, there is debate, and both sides are allowed to publish equally. For example, about 25 years in the past, there was a paper that was published on cold fusion, and these researchers believed they had reached the state of cold fusion. Well, in the true science, they presented their paper. Other people tried to reproduce it. Most could not, a few did, and then they found out there was another cause for it. That is the proper use of science. The God of science is actually cherry picking certain results and either deliberately ignoring, countering data, or condemning opposing data and the providers of that data. Science works only if all sides are presented. If only one side is permitted to present their views, it is because they are probably wrong. How many times have you heard a politician or news source say, follow the science? You know, what they're saying, it isn't science, it's politicized science. And it has become a god to have people follow. Reading from Proverbs 20, verse 6, most men will proclaim each his own goodness. And that's what we're seeing here. You can tell if you're hearing real science if the conclusions are referenced and other points of view are discussed. Otherwise, it's politicized science, and it's a false sense of feeling righteous and that you're doing something righteous when you're not. Now, there are certain levels of feeling righteous. You know, someone who is sincere and really trying to please God, then there's certainly hope for those type of people. But if the intention is not of serving God, but a self-righteous attitude, now those types of people can't be convinced. And God summed that up in Psalm 81, verse 12. So I gave them over to their own stubborn heart to walk in their own counsel. Now, there is a warning here for us and for our interactions with others. Now, if we're feeling righteous, we better be careful. We need to be grounded in God's word, and we need to follow his word when we interact with others. If God has given others over to their own stubborn heart, there is nothing we can say or do. But if they are sincere and humble, then God calls them when we can be a witness to them. But my main point is for us and our feeling righteous, we have to be really careful that if we are feeling righteous, that it is truly following God and not our own personal will or some method to justify our own actions. And so I hope we will think about this and look at our lives and see how we are reacting to God's law and how we are reacting to other people, and to avoid that feeling of being righteous and instead feel humble before God.